Hey guys, Hella Bella here, and in this video I'm going to be going over 15 don'ts of cruising. So if you have never been on a cruise, it can be a little bit overwhelming when you realize all the different things that go into it, the things that you have to plan, the things you have to learn, the things you have to bring with you. And so I just want to give you this information to make sure that you go into cruising knowing as much as you can possibly know. And I don't make any of these points to scare you away from cruising. I just feel like when I first started, I really was pretty uninformed as a first-time cruiser. I booked a cruise and I just went on it, and I really didn't know a lot. And compared my first cruise to my last cruise that I've gone on, I definitely have come a long way in terms of learning how to cruise in style and with all the right information. So with that being said, I'm going to get into these 15 tips. So tip number one is don't forget to research and plan ahead of time for the things that you want to do, because a lot of these things require a little bit of legwork to get into, especially if you're doing things in another country. If you are going to be doing, say for instance, on my last cruise, we wanted to go to a place called Mambo Beach, and we had to book a taxi to take us there, and so we didn't wind up paying for the excursion. We just kind of did our own thing. But if you're going to do that, you kind of want to know ahead of time, where am I going, how am I going to get there, how am I going to get back, how much does it cost? So those types of things are important to research before you go on your cruise. So don't forget to do your research. Tip number two seems kind of obvious, I guess, but tip number two is don't eat too much and don't drink too much, because a lot of people go on cruises and they don't realize okay, I need to pace myself. Cruising is honestly, it feels like Thanksgiving Day if you had Thanksgiving Day 4 or 5 days in a row. So you know how you just sit around on Thanksgiving just eating all day and just kind of hanging out, not really doing much? That's pretty much what cruising is. So in terms of the food, I think with everything being a buffet and everything being so accessible, it's easy to eat too much, and it can honestly make you feel really bad. So I would caution against eating too much. If you're going to try everything on the ship, just keep in mind that you have, however many days you're cruising to do it. You don't have to do it all in the first day. So when I say don't drink too much, obviously I'm talking about alcohol. I've gotten the drink package on, I think, 2 out of the 3 cruises that I've gone on in the past few years, and it's very easy to drink too much when you have someone saying, oh, you have 15 drinks a day, you should drink your 15. There is no way that I can drink 15 drinks in one day and feel good. So that's something that I think is a personal choice, but just pace yourself in terms of the drinking. If you are going to drink, try to make sure that you have a drink and then a water and a drink and then a water, and that way you don't drink too much, or you're going to feel really bad on your cruise. You might get seasick, and you might not feel like going on any of your excursions or getting off the ship if you're feeling hungover all day. Now, tip number 3 is don't forget to book excursions as far in advance as possible. So the good excursions will sell out, and I found this out the hard way. I kind of learned a lot of things about cruising trial by fire, and I honestly didn't realize how far in advance they would sell out. For example, some of the things that I wanted to do in Alaska, I booked my cruise 6 or 7 months in advance, and some of those things were already sold out, well in advance. So if you try to book an excursion the week of your cruise, or even when you get on the ship, you're more than likely not going to be able to do the excursion that you want to do, and that is something that I did not know before cruising. So don't forget to book your excursions ahead of time. Tip number 4 is don't think that a $300 cruise is actually a $300 cruise, because the cruise prices that they advertise on their website is usually not including all of the taxes, the port fees, the tips that are added on, and not to mention just all the random things that you're going to be buying, things that you'll buy before you go on the cruise to take with you, things that you may incur like the cost of parking, the cost of a hotel or airfare. So just keep in mind that just because it says flash sale, $300 or $500 cruise, it's rarely going to actually cost that much. So when you are budgeting for your cruise, you need to take into account things like the travel, things like where are you going to keep your car? Are you going to get a taxi there? Some of the Ubers that we took, I think were $60, $65 at some point. So just keep in mind those types of things. Those costs can really add up. So if you're only budgeting a couple $100s, I think that you're going to run out of money quickly. So just keep in mind that things are not really as good as they seem in terms of the pricing. Tip number 5 is don't overpack clothes and underpack things like medicine or things that would be useful to you, like a water bottle or things like that, because I think a lot of girls are probably more bad about this because we want to bring cute outfits and we want to have stuff to take pictures in, but I don't think overpacking is a cardinal sin or anything. I did feel like some of the stuff I packed wasn't very practical. I wound up dressing more in comfortable clothes, so I brought leggings and some shorts to wear, and so a lot of those fancier clothes that I brought really did not get worn. You know, obviously you might want to have something cute to wear to dinner, and if you're getting off the ship, you might want to have something cute to wear, but I think I overpacked like my fancy clothes, but that's obviously like a personal decision. But I think in terms of underpacking, there are some things that I did not bring on my first cruise that could have been more useful. Certain things like a refillable water bottle, which seems obvious now, but I did not bring that on my first cruise. So luckily we had the drink package, so we could just stop and get a drink wherever, but it's nice to be able to kind of have access to that where you can bring it off the ship. And obviously it just depends on your personal needs, but I also, on my last cruise, I wound up bringing like some liquid IVs and things like that. So, you know, kind of just look up different videos of what's useful to bring on your cruise. I think it's like definitely a personal decision of what you actually pack, and I don't think overpacking is a bad thing, but failing to pack what you need is a bad thing. So I guess that's my tip, is to kind of think out like what your day-to-day is going to look like and really plan ahead. And I always make a pack list. So I use the Notes app on my phone, and I'll have like a giant pack list, and I'll check each thing off, because the worst thing is when you get on the ship and you realize, oh no, I forgot to bring my swimsuit cover up. And then you wind up going to one of those stores on the cruise ship and buying one for like $60, and it's really only worth like $10. So yeah, that can be frustrating. I guess another tip that I have is that if you need something, you can always wait until you get to a port to buy it. When you get to a port, things are going to be a lot cheaper than what they would be on a ship, and the closer you are to port, the more expensive things are. The further away you get, the cheaper things will get. So that is just kind of a rule of thumb. Number 7 is don't forget to tell your bank that you're going out of town, because if your bank sees you swiping your card in Aruba, they're gonna flag that and your card is going to be shut off. So definitely make sure that you call your bank and say, I'm traveling here, here, and here, and this is how long I'm gonna be gone. It's really simple, but a lot of people forget to do it, and then when they try to use their card, they freak out. And I would also say, if possible at all, bring a backup card. That way, if one of your cards gets cut off, you will always have another card to use. All right, my next tip is don't forget to bring cash and small bills for tipping. So you can bring a lot of ones, and it's a personal decision whether or not you tip or not, but I usually tip for good service. And I found that if you tip with the bartenders, obviously they're gonna make a point to get to the people who are tipping before they get to the people who are not tipping. So that's just something that I do on my cruises. I'll usually bring about $100 cash just for tipping, and then I'll also bring, you know, maybe another $200 for money that I wanna spend in port. So altogether around $300 cash with me. I'm not gonna keep a lot of cash with me because I don't want to risk losing it, but overall I do try to make sure that I bring cash during my trips. I tend to try to use the cash when I go in port because it's just better to not be swiping your card when you're in port, but for me, I feel more comfortable just using cash for that. All right, I think I'm on tip number 8. So tip number 8 is don't forget to explore the ship. And that also is something that you're like, yeah, that's pretty obvious, Bella. But I think what happens is you get on the ship the first day and you're kind of curious and you're kind of like wondering, well, what's going on? What's happening over here? And a lot of people will gravitate towards the deck with the pool. But there's a lot of other cool stuff on most ships, especially if you're on a larger ship, that some of the things will be located at the front of the ship and then some at the back. So don't forget to like walk the whole ship. It's a good way to kind of get outside your room and walk around a little bit. You do kind of get a little stir crazy like day 3 or day 4, especially if you have a lot of sea days. So I would say don't forget to do some exploring while you're on board. You know, go to some different places that you don't necessarily know where you are. Go to the library, go to like a game room or something like that, and just kind of make sure that you fully see what the ship has to offer, because the last thing that you want to do is, you know, discover something that's really, really cool on like the last day of your cruise. Okay, tip number 9 is don't forget to check your onboard account and see that all of the charges make sense, because on our last cruise, we had some drink purchases that come up that were not ours. I think what happened was they got the numbers inverted, and so we had a charge on our account that was not ours. I think all we did was go to guest services and they got that taken care of, but you want to check that as soon as possible. I think we checked our onboard account like every single day at the end of the day. You can actually check it on the television in most cruise ships, and you can also check it on the app. So yeah, it's important to kind of see what you're being charged for. A lot of people don't realize that they're racking up all these charges, and then they get to the end of their cruise and they're like, what is this like $300 bill that I have? So don't forget to check your onboard account. My next tip is don't forget to protect your skin. These cruise ships are in the sun. I mean, you're in the middle of the ocean, so it's easy to get sunburned. So I always bring a ton of sunscreen, I also bring a hat and sunglasses, and typically I'll bring the style of cover-up that goes around your shoulders so I don't have my shoulders in the direct sunlight all day. When you get off the ship and you're on an excursion or something, 4 hours can go by really quickly, and that's a lot of sun exposure. So definitely make sure that you protect yourself, because you do not want to be sunburned for the rest of your cruise. It doesn't look cute in pictures and it doesn't feel good at all. So definitely make sure that you bring the appropriate amount of sunscreen for you and your family or your friends. Definitely be that mom who's spraying everyone down. Tip number 11 is don't forget to talk to people on board. A lot of people are like seasoned cruisers, and me and my friend Leslie, we met this couple on one of our Carnival cruises, and they had been on 28 cruises, and we were just like, wow, because that was our very first cruise, and we just couldn't believe that someone had been on that many cruises. And they told us all of their favorite ports that they like to go to, some of their favorite excursions, some of the cruise lines that they wouldn't cruise again. And so being able to talk to someone who had traveled a lot was just a really good resource. And also it's kind of good to just meet new people and kind of talk to them through different walks of life. And so I think it's important to kind of, maybe you're not the most, I'm kind of an introverted person, so I'm not as comfortable talking to strangers, but my boyfriend is an extroverted person. So I like to bring someone who's extroverted with me to do the work for me. But don't forget to talk to people on board, because they have a lot of information. Tip number 12 is don't go to guest services during peak times. So the peak times would be like, okay, so as soon as you get on the ship, a lot of people will go straight to guest services because they've already found something in their room that was wrong, or they're in the wrong room, or some amenity that they thought was going to be provided is not. So the last thing that you want to be doing is spending the first 6 hours of your cruise waiting in the guest services line. And maybe I'm exaggerating, but a lot of people I've seen like waiting for a long time. Leave a comment below if you spent a long time waiting in the guest services line. My tip is going to be, if you have an issue, leave yourself a little note in your room and maybe go at night or a time that's less crowded. If you can go during dinner time when everyone's at dinner, there will definitely be less of a line. And the reason I say don't go when it's crowded is because the people at the customer service desk are also going to be overwhelmed and frustrated, and they're going to try to get you in and out as quickly as possible. So if you go to them when they're less stressed and they're less frustrated, I think they're going to be able to give you better service and you're going to have a better experience overall. Tip number 13 is don't forget to bring a lanyard, something to carry your SeaPass with. I wore this to kind of show you guys how I take my stuff with me on my cruise. So I usually will be wearing this, and sometimes I'll wear a fanny pack. So in my fanny pack, I'll keep like my sunglasses, maybe a little bit of cash, my phone, and this if I don't feel like wearing it. But I definitely recommend getting something to carry your SeaPass in, because a lot of people lose theirs, and it is your only way to do stuff on the ship. So you don't pay with cash when you go on a ship. That's another thing that I did not know. I thought that you could pay in cash. You absolutely cannot. Everything is charged to that little card, so you need to be able to keep up with it. And it also is something that you have to use at dinner. So when you go to dinner, they'll ask for your number. So definitely just find a way to keep up with it. I highly recommend buying these lanyards because it is the easiest way to keep it on your person. Number 14 is don't board the ship without your carry-on bag that has all of your essential items in it, because if they lose your luggage, that is all you're going to have for a couple days or possibly for your entire cruise. So I would recommend putting a change or two of clothes in that bag, and also all of your travel documents. Do not put your passport in your luggage and then give it to the guy to take on the ship, because when you check in, you're going to need that passport. And you would not believe the amount of people who accidentally do this. I know it's stressful the day of traveling. A lot of people get overwhelmed. They don't know where to go. They feel a lot of uncertainty. But the best thing that you can do is stay calm and just get in a line, and everything will work out. But if you get upset and you get frustrated, things are going to go to the wrong place. So I would say do not forget that you need to make sure that you have enough stuff for a couple days worth if you don't get your luggage. I would also make sure that you put in any kind of medication in that carry-on bag, because you do not want that to get lost. So if you have something and you absolutely do not want to lose it, make sure that you keep it with you. Tip number 15 is don't forget to put your phone on airplane mode. And along with that, I would say don't forget to download anything that you want while you're on the ship. So if you want music, you want podcasts, or you need maps for when you're traveling, I would definitely go ahead and download all that stuff before your cruise, because once you get on the cruise, you don't want to have to pay for internet if you can help it. Now, if you've got the internet package, go wild, go crazy, I don't care. But I usually don't get the internet package unless it's like a really good deal, because I don't care to be on my phone that much. I'm on the cruise to have a good time. I want to disconnect, and I want to be able to enjoy things in the moment. But one tip I have is that you actually can download maps. So if you're going, for example, to Aruba and you want to have a map of of the city, you can download that beforehand, and then when you go off the ship, you can access it without having Wi-Fi. So that's something that I didn't necessarily know, but I learned that traveling to Italy when we needed to travel around Venice and find our Airbnb. So those are 15 tips that I have for you about what not to do on your cruise. I know that a lot of this stuff seems obvious, but some of it, you know, if you're a first-time cruiser, it can be a little bit scary to start off going to travel and going in international waters, and you know, it's really exciting. So I hope that you will enjoy cruising, and if this is your first cruise, I would love to hear where you're going and for how long. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.